my family, my hobby is counting rabbis, praying in Congress. My hobby should be fixing the refrigerator. So just, I will always say that. No, I don't know who the next speaker is going to be. I'm not that smart. Maybe Rabbi Reznikov is closer to the Almighty than I am. Can say that. I have a couple things before I dive in. This is hugely meaningful to me and just emotional. A couple things. I know there are people on Zoom. My wife, Beth Mortman, is on Zoom, and I know that she's on mute right now. And I'll tell you, I would never put my wife on mute. That was not my decision. I would have fought that. At the table, Rabbi Reznikov opened with a prayer, and there's going to be a lot more Rabbi Reznikov in this presentation, and we'll speak more about him in a moment. I want to mention again, my brother is here. As Sid said, we both were bar mitzvahed in the old days in the old synagogue, and just all and the Gorans and just all the memories here, just absolutely amazing. Eric is also at the table. Eric's like, not before my time, but still a C-SPAN alumni from the old days, and good to see you. So this is huge. There's two very meaningful parts of me being here. First, on a very practical level, the book, When Rabbis Bless Congress, The Great American Story of Jewish Prayers in Capitol Hill. This is my first in-person presentation of the book, my first author talk. So this actually is, this presentation I've done on Zoom and other places. Rabbi Reznikov has suffered through it. It's updated. There's some new material in here. But this is the first time I've actually done this in person. So it's great. And second, as we said, this is my first time speaking at Temple Micah since February 2nd of 1980. So things have changed. The parking for me, at least, has never been this good. I don't know if I can speak for anybody. All right. So anyways, I'm going to dive right in. And I know we have, I have a presentation here, and thanks to Dan, I'm just going to keep an eye. I'm going to walk through, we're going to do a lot of videos and a lot of pictures, and I'll walk through the presentation. And then we'll take questions and answers afterwards. And you're welcome to interrupt with questions, but some of the things you might be wondering about. Okay, Sid, I appreciate no, don't do that. All right, let's dive right in. Thank you to Temple Mike. Oh, and I do want to thank everyone, and Sid for organizing it, for getting me here. All right, enough of Mortman. Let's go right to the rabbis. All right, When Rabbis Bless Congress, The Great American Story of Jewish Prayers on Capitol Hill, published October 3 years ago, 2020. Academic Studies Press is my publisher. And let's just start with a cartoon. And Dan, thank you. Everybody on the Zoom can see this, right? Okay. Let the mayhem commence. Here's a cartoon. Didn't they used to start the U.S. House proceedings with a prayer? It says, keep up with the times, Carmen. So there's a little joke here. All right. First thing that Congress does in every session is pray. Even before they do the Pledge of Allegiance, there's a prayer, both in the House and the Senate. And this is it says right here, Rule 14 of the House, the daily order of business. First, prayer by the chaplain. Second, reading and approval of the journal. Third thing they do is the pledge. So this is in the rules. And let me just play now here, before we get to the rabbis, we'll just play a prayer. This is from yesterday, and you'll understand why I'm playing this one from yesterday.
The House will come to order. The prayer will be offered by Chaplain Kivett.
Would you pray with me?
This morning, O God, keenly aware of the violence and turmoil in Israel and throughout the Middle East, we pray with the psalmist who wrote, "Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May those who love you be secure. May there be peace within your walls and security within your citadels. For the sake of our families and friends, we will say, peace be within you. For the sake of the house of the Lord our God, we will seek your good. Lord, in your mercy, for the people of Israel, for the people in Gaza, in your mercy, hear our prayers. Amen.
Okay, I'll pause it there, and I'll just, one thing, it's the obvious what the message is, a couple just practical things about what you just saw. That's Margaret Gruen-Kibben, who is the official chaplain of the U.S. House of Representatives. The Senate has their own chaplain, Dr. Barry Black. They are both Navy, retired chaplains of the Navy. Margaret Gruen-Kibben is Presbyterian, and Barry Black is Seventh-day Adventist. Obviously, she's a woman. He is African-American. It's the first time that kind of diversity has been among the official chaplains. So both chambers of Congress have official chaplains. The positions, taxpayer paid. They have staff, and their role is to basically open with a prayer, but also do additional ministering to members who are going through tough votes and need guidance, or the chaplain could preside over funerals or other big events in the Capitol. But this is what you publicly see most of them, is opening each session with a prayer. This, by the way, was a pro forma session yesterday. For fellow Congress junkies here, a pro forma session is basically to keep the trains running. There was no legislation. The House opens every session, a legislative session or a pro forma session with a prayer. The Senate, only a legislative session. They have pro forma sessions, but no prayer in there. All right, we are going to, give me here, let's see. All right, brief history of prayers in Congress. It's from the very beginning. It's ingrained in our nation. The Constitutional Convention, Ben Franklin advocated a prayer. The Senate elected chaplains. The House elected chaplains in 1789. That was even before the Bill of Rights was ratified. So the history of prayers and chaplains goes from the beginning. All right, I'm going to dive in. Guest chaplains. So what we are talking about today are guest chaplains, meaning for whatever reason that the official chaplain is not giving a prayer that day. Could be out of town, could be, and we'll go into showing the diversity of the country and different religions. When there's the official chaplain is not there to give the prayer, the guest chaplains give prayer. Why do we have guest chaplains? Again, as I said, if the official chaplains are unable to show to deliver the prayer that day, and to demonstrate the diversity of our own country. There's no official religion. It's the strength of America. Here are pictures and examples of different religions who have prayed in Congress. 2 weeks ago, the first Sikh prayed in the House of Representatives. A Sikh prayed in the Senate, I think about 4 or 5 years ago. And a couple of rabbis here, an imam, and someone from a Hawaiian church has prayed. So here's an example of the breadth of religions represented by prayers in Congress. First, okay, now we're going to dive right into rabbis who are prayed in Congress. Rabbis are part of the mix. The first one was February 1st, 1860. Rabbi Morris Raphael from Congregation B'nai Jeshurun in New York, born in Sweden. And this was on the eve of the Civil War. History buffs, who was president in February 1st, 1860? If you say James Buchanan, I'll salute and praise you. Say, that's right, James Buchanan was president, even before Abraham Lincoln, but it was still on the eve of the Civil War. And you see even in his message, this is from the Congressional Record of 1860, and he talks about pleasantness for brethren to dwell together in unity. And of course, as we know from history, that unity did not last. So that was the 1860 prayer. Let's play a prayer from October 23rd, 2020.
The house will be in order. The prayer will be offered by the guest chaplain, Rabbi Arnold E. Resnikoff, chaplain, U.S. Navy, retired, Washington, D.C.
Almighty God, pray, reflect in different ways, but together mourn our dead and tell their stories to keep their memories alive. 37 years ago today, I was in Beirut when a terrorist truck bomb attack took the lives of 241 U.S. military personnel. 58 French troops died a heartbeat later. A second truck, another deadly blast. They came in peace. They risked their lives to buy some time for change. Peace did not prevail, but their risk, their sacrifice must be honored and remembered. Their story must be told. Today, as we recall and honor Beirut dead and Beirut vets in a special way, we mourn all those we've lost to war, to hatred, and disease as well. Lord, may we heed your call, together to choose life, to work for, fight for life, a better life for those who one day will remember us. And may we say, Amen.
Okay, I'm going to pause there.
Thank you, Rabbi Resnikoff.
All right.
Pursuant
Okay.
Just section 4A,
Quickly, a couple things on that. Rabbi Resnikoff, as you saw, was not in the front of the house. He was on the sides. Who remembers what was happening in October 2020? COVID. So this was a time of exactly right, social distancing in the house. There were very few guest chaplains at all during this time. And in fact, if I recall, Rabbi Resnikoff was the first rabbi guest chaplain after the beginning of COVID. Came in, gave the prayer. Every other prayer he's given, and we'll get into more of his history in a moment, has been from the front, the rostrum there. Bigger picture, obviously, the messaging of the anniversary of the Beirut Marine barracks bombing. I want to mention, just parenthetically here, a week from Sunday, if anyone is interested, Rabbi Resnikoff is going to be talking about his experiences in Beirut. I'll be having a conversation with him at the National Museum of American Military Jewish History, if I have the name right, at 2 o'clock, I believe, on a week from Sunday. And we can get you more information about that later, about his experiences in Beirut 40 years ago. All right, let me move on here. And 1 second. Okay. Now, even more recent still, this was last month. Let's play one more very current rabbi, Rabbi Hannah Spiro, Reconstructionist rabbi from Hill Havurah in Washington, D.C.
The prayer will be offered by the guest chaplain, Rabbi Hannah Spiro of Hill Havurah, Washington, D.C.
Creator of the universe, as the Jewish New Year approaches, we ready ourselves for transitions and growth, beginnings and endings. We anticipate repair, learning, and forward movement in our country, and we prepare to handle challenges together. The core Jewish belief in viewing this entire season is that of return. It's the idea that we are all born pure and beautiful, and as we move through our lives, we make mistakes or transgress, but every single day and every new year, we have the power to return to our best selves through soul searching, healing, and making amends. This new year, may each of us remember that potential within ourselves. We return to our best selves, and as we do, may we see the beauty, inherent value, and possibility for positive change in all those around us. Together, may we co-create the sweet new year.
Okay. So let's do some numbers here. How many rabbis have prayed in Congress? 640 times a rabbi has opened Congress in prayer between February 1860 and the prayer you just saw, Rabbi Spiro. That's 442 rabbis. Now you might be wondering how come those numbers are different. How come there's 640 times a rabbi has opened Congress in prayer, but 442 different rabbis? That's because many rabbis, about 100, have given 2 or more prayers in Congress. So there have been multiple appearances many times from over 401 synagogues. And let's, here's, if you love the numbers, praying in both the House and the Senate, 66 rabbis have prayed in both the House and the Senate. There's Rabbi Gary Zola of the American Jewish Archives in Cincinnati has prayed in both the House and the Senate. 14 times a rabbi has prayed in the House and the Senate. A rabbi has prayed in the House and a rabbi has prayed in the Senate on the same days. Most prayers by a rabbi guest chaplain. The leaderboard sitting right here among us, Rabbi Resnikoff with 20 and still going strong. Let's give a round of applause for topping the leaderboard, Rabbi Resnikoff. I always wanted to do that. I could do that in person now. Moshe Feller ranks number 2, 10 prayers. By the way, 8 in the Senate and 12 in the House, Rabbi Resnikoff. 10 prayers. Second place, Rabbi Moshe Feller, who actually gave one a couple years ago. Lubavitch rabbi from Minnesota, 9 in the Senate and 1 in the House. Rabbi Arthur Schneier, 7 prayers, 2 in the Senate and 5 in the House from New York. And he has passed away, but Rabbi Joshua Haberman, if people here remember from Washington Hebrew congregation, also gave 7 prayers, 6 in the Senate and 1 in the House. This might not come in, probably won't come as a surprise, but if you just break down demographically, states most represented, New York, this is kind of obvious, but New York, you see, followed by Pennsylvania, Maryland, Washington, D.C. at the end, but those are the top states. for praying. And I should mention, we'll probably get this a little more logistical, but rabbis, when they pray, they have to fly on their own. They are not reimbursed, if I have that right, Rabbi Reznikov. So when you see California numbers and Florida numbers, those are a substantial amount in investment to come pray in front of Congress. Top synagogues, your neighbor down the road, Washington Hebrew congregation, 24 times a rabbi from Washington Hebrew congregation has prayed in Congress. And there was a mention of Addis Israel, ranks number 3 with 7 rabbis officially from Addis Israel. There might be more rabbis who are members, but we're not identified as being with Addis Israel. Here's an example of a prayer from a rabbi from Addis Israel. Rabbi Solomon Metz prayed in the Senate on June 5th, 1944, and you see the congressional record there. Now, we all know history. What was the next day? D-Day, and you can almost sense what's coming over the country at the time. And he talks in his prayer, on the right side, you can see, O Lord of hosts and Father of mercy, grant us a speedy and decisive victory. Bless us with thy righteous and abiding peace. And ends with the third to last paragraph, a plug there for Prophet Micah. May the vision of the prophets of thy book be our inspiration in building the world tomorrow. May the deathless word of Micah become the sacred song of our civilization. And we, Micah, current and alumni, it hath been told thee, O man, what is good, what the Lord doth require of you, to do justice, love mercy, walk humbly with your God. And that's how Rabbi Metz ended his prayer in the Senate the day before D-Day. This chart I love talking about because this is a breakdown of Orthodox, Reform, and conservative rabbis. It is roughly a third, it's roughly equal parts, give or take a little bit, but it's a third of Orthodox rabbis praying in Congress, Reform, and conservative rabbis. I like this chart. I like pointing this out because there's nobody saying who should be a rabbi praying. There's nobody saying you have to fill a quota. The government isn't saying you need an Orthodox rabbi. But this is naturally how it falls out if you look at the numbers of their affiliations. I like talking about this. The first rabbi, woman rabbi to pray in Congress. Jewish history buffs here will know, American Jewish history buffs will recognize the name Sally Priesand, the first female ordained rabbi in America. I believe she was ordained the year before in 72, and she ended up praying in Congress on October 23rd, 1973. The eve, by the way, that was the same day as the first articles of impeachment against Richard Nixon were sent to the Judiciary, House Judiciary Committee, and she gave the prayer that day. And she was the first woman rabbi to pray. Her prayer does not mention anything about being a pioneer, being the first woman, just a straightforward prayer. But she was sponsored by Bella Abzug, and folks here know Bella Abzug, fiery, feminist, liberal, democratic congresswoman from New York, who very much talked about how she was the first, in fact, she's Congresswoman Abzug says, but as Rabbi Priesand has said, a rabbi is also a leader and a counselor. Rabbi Priesand recognizes the importance of her position as a model for young Jewish women. And she said earlier on, Rabbi Priesand is the first woman rabbi in America and the first to offer the morning prayer to the House of Representatives. So great bit of history there for Rabbi Priesand. And quick thing about how many women rabbis have there been in Congress praying? 17 prayers given by 14 women rabbis. The lower right, we saw earlier the prayer by Rabbi Hannah Spiro. She's the only one to have given multiple prayers. She's given 4 prayers now, and every other woman rabbi has given 1 prayer. By the way, sometimes I like talking about this. You know, if you start the clock, I mean, obviously there was no women rabbis ordained before 73 in Rabbi Priesand, so there couldn't have been any women rabbis praying in Congress. But if you start the clock at 73 and then you go to now, it's still inordinately heavy pro-male rabbis represented there. All right, I want to talk a little bit about military rabbis praying in Congress. Some examples here of these are all rabbis who wore their uniforms to give the prayers. Rabbi Stephen Rain of the Arlington Cemetery, the Air Force, he presides over the funerals and the burials of Jewish soldiers. Air Force men and women at Arlington. And their wives. Thank you. Who said that? Yeah. Thank you. Yes. Thank you. And their wives. Rabbi at the bottom right, Rabbi Harold Robinson of the Naval Academy. At the bottom right, Rabbi Leinwand of the Army. The top right, and Maurice Caprell, also of the Navy. He prayed in the Senate twice, I think, and wore his colors there. A couple things still on rabbi chaplains in the military and in Congress. 12% of the rabbis who have been guest chaplain in Congress also served as a U.S. military chaplain. The first one was Rabbi Leonard Levy in the Senate in 1895, and 3 years later he was the Army chaplain in the Spanish-American War. And there's Rabbi Levy there, and he was from, I think, Road of Shalom in Philadelphia, that synagogue. I'm going to show some example. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't play that one. All right, doesn't matter. I had a montage of military chaplains opening Congress in prayer, but that is my fault. Okay. Guest chaplain rabbis who have also been in the National Guard. Here are some examples of rabbis who are guardsmen who prayed in Congress as well. The top right, Rabbi Mark Getman of Canarsie in New York prayed in the House on July 24th, 2019. If you watch Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, you might have seen some episodes in the first two seasons. Rabbi Getman plays a rabbi. He doesn't play a rabbi who prayed in Congress. He just plays a rabbi in those early episodes. He's the first rabbi, and I believe the only rabbi so far who's been on both C-SPAN and Amazon Prime. So that's kind of nice. And by the way, one neat thing, and Eric, as a fellow C-SPANer, will appreciate this, the value of being able to see the video and having TV in the house. You can see picture Rabbi Getman. C-SPAN began in 1979. That's when House coverage with TV cameras began in the House. In the Senate in 1986, we can see prayers from rabbis before then. We can't, in the congressional record. So we can see what they said, but we can't see them visually. So a benefit is seeing Rabbi Getman wearing a tallis. And he is the only rabbi in my research who wore a tallis up there, giving a prayer. So a little something extra there. All right. Holocaust survivors. We mentioned earlier, Francie, Rabbi Laszlo Berkowitz from Road of Shalom, my home synagogue now, gave a prayer, and forgive me. And Eric, actually, this is, we misspelled his first name. It should be an S. There should not be a Z there, but that's C-SPAN back then fault, not my C-SPAN right now fault. So I just want to throw that in there. Sorry to kill you on that. All right, so Rabbi Laszlo Berkowitz is an example of Holocaust survivors who survived the Holocaust, came to America, and became rabbis, and then ended up praying in the literal center of democracy in America. And I love, there's so much that's beautiful that's wrapped up into that, of Holocaust survivors praying in the literal center of democracy. Rabbi Isaac Newman, Auschwitz survivor, prayed in Congress twice. Here's his prayer from 1970. Rabbi Morris Shapiro, Buchenwald survivor, prayed in 1975. And Rabbi Berkowitz from Road of Shalom, who recently passed away, he also gave the prayer on Flag Day in June 14th, 1988. Rabbi Berkowitz prayed in the house. Rabbi Berkowitz was rescued by the 82nd Airborne Division at Auschwitz, and always wore a patch, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Francie, of the 82nd Airborne on his clothes. And his prayer was full of love and appreciation for America. A few more demographic notes. 26 prayers given by rabbis from Poland, 24 prayers given by rabbis from Germany, 18 from Austria, 11 prayers from Russia. I'm going to go now, switch a little bit from the numbers into more of the content of what the rabbis say and pray. Thanks to Rabbi Resnikoff for these kind of guidelines, rules. The prayer should not exceed 150 words. The prayer must be from personal political views or partisan politics, exclusively given in its entirety in English language. This is a point for Rabbi Resnikoff when he gave his prayer opening our event today, he spoke some Hebrew, and which is a no-no to do if you're in Congress, but we're in a safe place here in Temple Micah to speak Hebrew. And by the way, I also should say, you heard at the video of Rabbi Reznikov say we pray and meditate in many different ways. He says that to be inclusive of all religions, so everybody can benefit. When he gave his prayer here today, fortunately, he could dispense with that. It's very targeted messaging here today. When introduced by the speaker for the prayer, the guest chaplain should not make any introductory remarks, but rather just begin the prayer. On the substance, rabbis have covered a range of topics in their prayers: war and peace, diversity, environment, history and progress, space. In the late 1960s, a lot of rabbis gave prayers when the Mercury astronauts were in orbit, when we landed on the moon. It just coincided, those events of the day coincided with rabbis praying in Congress and incorporated those messages. Laws and commandments, when Lubavitch rabbis give the prayer in Congress, they invoke the Noahide laws often. And most important, perhaps, quoting and citing American institutions and American government. Presidents are often mentioned in prayers. Washington mentioned 9 times, Lincoln 10 times, FDR, Eisenhower, and Washington and Lincoln mentioned. I'm sorry, Lincoln was mentioned the most by a rabbi praying in Congress. Rabbi Reznikov mentioned FDR, if I recall, right, and became the first rabbi to mention. What was the context? The 4 freedoms. Thank you. And his one of his prayers. The big winner among prophets mentioned Isaiah. Everybody loves citing Isaiah, cited in 71 rabbi prayers. 1 out of every 10 prayers by a rabbi in Congress includes Isaiah. And 46 times, nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. We saw the rules in the House. Rabbi Jeffrey Stiffman of St. Louis was kind enough to provide me the rules for when he gave the prayer in the Senate in 1978. And sponsored by John Danforth, Republican senator of Missouri. And it says here, the prayer must be free from personal political views, from sectarian controversies, and from any intimations pertaining to foreign policy. And there's our guideline. It must be given exclusively in its entirety in the English language. But before that, Hebrew. Here, one of the fun parts of researching, doing the research on this, is coming across Hebrew lettering before those rules were imposed in the congressional record. So printed by the government printing office, here is several prayers in the 60s from rabbis who spoke Hebrew during their prayers, and the Hebrew was then included in the congressional record transcript of their prayers. Top mentioned Jewish figures, Rabbi Schneerson, because of the number of Lubavitch rabbis who've given prayers. Moses 15 times. King David has been mentioned 4 times in prayers by rabbi. Hopefully this plays, and we might be able to speak about this, but I'm going to play a clip from, this will speak for itself, but the only setup, this is a CNN story. The 30 seconds of backup. Rabbis who've prayed in Congress make lots of local news. Their local newspapers love covering a person in the community going out and giving a prayer in Congress, not just rabbis, but priests, any member of the cloth. Here is a rare occasion where a rabbi has made national news. If this plays.
2019 winds down. A prayer this morning on Capitol Hill from a rabbi marking the end of the year with a message of hope.
With this decade's last house prayer, we give thanks for progress, look ahead with hope, but with eyes wide open to prejudice, hatred, terror that remain, fueling violence like the anti-Semitic Hanukkah party attack Saturday, the Texas church attack Sunday. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. And let us say, Amen.
Okay, so that was CNN coverage of Rabbi Reznikov's prayer, mention of anti-Semitism. The first time domestic anti-Semitism has been mentioned in a prayer from a rabbi. was Rabbi Reznikov at the end of 2019. And okay, I'm checking the time here because there's 2 more videos I want to show. Actually, I would let me show this because this is, I think, Sid, how are we on time? That's what are we? It's. Do you want to leave time for questions? Okay, let's let this play. Then I'll explain this.
Sitting will be in order. Today's prayer will be offered by guest chaplain Rabbi Maurice Lyons, St. Louis, Missouri.
Our Father of the arching heavens and undulating earth, rooting in sublimity from the evolution of the first amoeba to the glorious emergence of man, from the morning mist burst of time to its endless mystical haze, thou art eternal in all creation, palpitates to thine imprint. While thy rulership holds eternal sway over the universe, we, thy transitory children, can but exercise dominion over a small portion of this planet, thy footstool. Ever since the founding of our beloved country, have we Americans permeated by thy teaching throughout our government for the benefit of all our citizens. And to this end have we selected for regnancy those leaders whom we felt would embrace thine exhortation of love, mercy, and brotherhood. Standing in the effulgence of thy Shekinah, I feel uplifted by the presence of this august body, the finest of all legislative instruments in supplication to thee. I pray that thou render sharp and universal the wisdom of our esteemed senators, that it reach therapeutically across party lines and political differences to our common bedrock American heritage. In the reverential language of King Solomon to the God of Israel, I do humbly pray, grant, O Lord, to each of our beloved senators a discerning heart to understand between right and wrong. May their speech and above all action reflect the altruism and glory of the founders of our great country. And in conclusion, I rejoice in pronouncing over this esteemed legislative body the ancient priestly benediction. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May he cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May he lift up his countenance unto you and grant you peace. Peace of heart, peace of mind, peace in all the paths that you may tread, now and forever. Amen.
All right, there's a couple of things in there I absolutely love. Just historically, obviously doing the Shekhinah, the priestly benediction, the oldest prayer in the book of Numbers at the very end, raising his hands like it's, it's a congregation. Speaking Hebrew, obviously, mention of King Solomon, love that. My antenna went up. That's great. A mention of a Jewish figure. And just the overall, the language he's using. On a personal level, this is really neat for me personally, because as part of my research, every rabbi who has given a prayer in Congress for whom I have video, I put on YouTube. So just to create the historical record of this. And so Rabbi Maurice Lyons of St. Louis, I put on YouTube, and then went on to the next rabbi, put the next rabbi on. I got a call, an email, I guess about 6 months after I put this on YouTube, from his family. And he has passed, this is prayers from 1994. Rabbi Lyons, I think, passed away something like 10 years ago. And they didn't know that he had given a prayer. It was his yahrzeit, and they were just Googling grandpa. And they came across this video. Didn't know that the family didn't know that Rabbi Lyons, they may have known he gave the prayer, but didn't know they could see it. So it just meant a lot. The grandkids, for the first time, were able to hear his voice through this prayer. And so they sent me a note saying, just like profusely thanking me. And I just said, I told them, I need to thank you because I haven't had, I was doing this mechanically, but just to have a personal reaction from a family was wonderful. So I'm going to show one more video. And this is just a little vanity here of me with various rabbis who have given prayers, and I show up in the press gallery and get the pictures and all that. So that's just along the way. Yeah, just me. By the way, I have to say, Rabbi Moshe Fell, that's me, Jerome, my brother, has become more observant than I am. Me putting on tefillin outside the Senate when the Lubavitch Rabbi Moshe Feller gave the prayer. And that actually, this actually is where the January 6th, the mob went right by there. So it's kind of meaningful to be able to put on tefillin with rabbis right after he gave the prayer, right where the mob was. So that was a neat thing. So that, yeah, indeed, that is me with the phylacteries, Jerome, and all that, just to prove that. Quick, when rabbis pray, often they are sponsored. How do they get there? They're sponsored by members of Congress. Here's a party breakdown. Democrats have sponsored 202 rabbis, Republicans 119. One independent, Senator Joseph Lieberman sponsored the late Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs, 2011. But here's Hakeem Jeffries sponsoring in 2018, Rabbi Shlomo Siegel of Kehilat Moshe in Brooklyn, for example. And there's in the middle, Senator Lisa Murkowski in 2016 sponsoring Rabbi Yosef Greenberg of the Lubavitch Jewish Center of Anchorage, Alaska, came in. First member of Congress to sponsor a rabbi, Representative Schuyler Colfax, Republican of Indiana. He sponsored who we met at the beginning, Rabbi Morris Raphael, of course, in '69. As Mr. Rosenberg knows, Schuyler Colfax became vice president under Ulysses Grant. And Denver's original Jewish neighborhood, West Colfax, named for Congressman Colfax, who sponsored the first rabbi. Isn't this so exciting? I can sense your just enthusiasm as much as mine. I know it's a certain category of people who join me in that. All right, so you're wondering, that was the big question as we come to an end of the presentation. What about Temple Micah? I'm sure we all wonder that. So the short answer, no. No rabbi from Temple Micah has given a prayer. Not yet. I hope to run up the numbers here today. But rabbis have mentioned, if this is a consolation, Prophet Micah many times. And here are some examples of rabbis who have mentioned Prophet Micah in their remarks from the Congressional Record, and a couple more mentions of Micah 6:8 over and over. Rabbi Garizola, 2005, mentioned Prophet Micah. So I didn't want to leave everybody here thinking there's no hope. There's lots of hope. You're right down the street, and Rabbi Reznikov can give you a lift. Now, this goes back, Sid and the Gorans may remember, if there's one Micah connection, and Jerome, if you recall, Rabbi Mark Miller was a rabbi in training, or an intern rabbi here in like 1974. He left Temple Micah, congregation Temple Bat Yam in California. I've never played this before. I'll just play this. Now, Rabbi Mark Miller died a couple of years ago, I believe. But here is his, I'm sorry, I said I have two more videos. I want to show this, and then I'm going to end with one more after this. So this is Mark Miller's. And I may not play the whole thing. No. That's my video's fault. All right, doesn't matter, all right. But anyway, so he prayed twice, once in the Senate, once in the House after 9/11. Sorry about the video quality in that. But that gives me more time to play the big finale. Now, I want to say, Rabbi Resnikov, you've seen this, but it has been updated. So this video speaks for itself, and I'll just let this play. Yes, you do see George Santos there. So these are members of Congress sponsoring rabbis praying in Congress and trying to get everything right. So let's.
The prayer will be offered by a guest chaplain, the Rabbi Wayne Dossett of the Elijah Menyon, La Costa, California.
The prayer will be offered by the guest chaplain, the Rabbi Richard Baruch Rabinowitz, Aish International, New York, New York. The prayer will be offered by the guest chaplain, the Rabbi Thomas A. Lockheim, Congregation Or Kadash, Tucson, Arizona.
It will be offered by the guest chaplain, Reverend Erwin N. Goldenberg, Temple Beth Israel, York, Pennsylvania.
The prayer will be offered today by our guest chaplain, Rabbi Stephen Roth, a congregation, Eitz Kahim, Passaic, New Jersey. Prayer will be offered today by our guest chaplain, Rabbi Michael Siegel, Anshe Emet Synagogue, Chicago, Illinois.
Today's prayer will be offered by guest chaplain, Rabbi Shem Shon Sherrill, Congregation Keyhole Zeke Rome, Mordecai, Brooklyn, New York.
Present to you His Excellency, Jim Herzog, President of Israel.
Rabbi Yossi Harley of the Shabbat Center of Kendall on Pinecrest.
Rosh. Help me, Carl. Rosh Hashanah. We've had to set problems with that.
The president doesn't want to have to be confronted with priorities and spending because he has a lot of chutzpah.
Today's prayer will be offered by guest chaplain, Rabbi Mel Heck, Temple Beth Ann, Las Vegas, Nevada, a guest of Santa Harry.
As Rabbi Harlett mentioned in his invocation, today is significant. It's significant because it's the day of the Shabbat community, important, the day in the Shabbat community. It's the 15th anniversary of the passing of Lubavitch Rebbe, Rabbi Shanarison, one of the great Jewish leaders of our time.
Prayer will be offered by guest chaplain, Rabbi Moshe Feller, Lubavitch House, St. Paul, Minnesota.
Rabbi Feller has been a leader in the Twin Cities Jewish community for over 30 years. Accompanying the rabbi today were 20 students from the Habab Academy located in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Today's opening prayer will be offered by Rabbi Matney Greenberg, director of the Matsu Jewish Center Shabbat Lubavitch in Palmer, Alaska.
It's a Lubavitch Yeshiva in Brooklyn, New York. Since 1988, Rabbi Green has served as the Lubavitcher Rebbe emissary to Rochester.
Madam Speaker, I want to talk about Rabbi Hyman, who just gave the opening prayer. There is a midrash, one of the many parables that embellish upon the Torah. In this particular midrash,
Under Rabbi Siegel's leadership, the synagogue has grown and truly fulfilled its commitment to Kalal Yisrael and Tikkun Olam. I am grateful for my punctuation and pronunciation keys, and I'm grateful for my constituents that they can be part of such an inspiring Kehillah.
He introduced me to Cholent, which for this Presbyterian was a new experience. I think I thank him for introducing me to that part of his history and culture, if not exactly for the culinary experience. Welcome, Rabbi Wiederhorn, and thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back the balance of my time.
All right, and finally, thank you. By the way, I love the Congressman Sestak talking about the midrash, which I think a dermatologist might be able to help out with that midrash. All right, and finally, thanks to you all. Here's the plug. I have to put it. This is again my first in-person book event. So if you're going to buy the book, I've been told by my small independent publisher, don't mention the big A word. We love independent bookstores, Politics and Prose. You can buy it through them online. And it's thanks, we have a flyer here, but special for Temple Micah. If you buy the book online through my publisher, bottom right, Academic Studies Press, you put in the promo code Mortman, which actually is also, oddly, my last name, which hadn't have that happen. You get 35% off, and who doesn't love that? By the way, I have to say, if you can get the code and use the Mortman code, you get 35% off. If you pay full price, you get all the pages, so just keep that in mind.
And there's flyers on the back table by the door.
And thank you to Temple Micah. The last word, by the way, again, bar mitzvah here, February 2nd, 1980. If any of you gave me a present, and I forgot to send a thank you letter, let me just say sorry. So, thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you. All right.